I was recently talking to someone who I didn't think saw any of my videos, but apparently she does. This person has at least said that she's an atheist. And so we were recently talking about a friend of hers who is struggling in her third marriage. And at the end of the conversation, she talked about how abusive this relationship was and no matter what. And this woman actually went to jail because her husband tried to say she was abusive when he was really the one doing stuff and twisting it. It was really crazy. And then this person said to me, but they made a deal and they're going to try and work it out. And she goes, see, she's standing. Isn't that what you want? And I said, no. It befuddled her because she had no idea. And I said, look, you're missing the whole point of standing. That's not her husband. Standing is about standing on your vows and the indissolubility of marriage. One cannot have a second or a third spouse while the first spouse is alive. That's not Christine Bacon's laws. That's God's. That is Jesus, who, when he was even questioned by the Pharisees about marriage and divorce, and said, yeah, well, from the beginning of time, God created man and woman. They were meant to come together. And he said, that was Moses who gave you that because of the hardness of your hearts. So Jesus never affirmed that I approved of that. He said, that's Moses. And then he goes into present tense as he's speaking to them and says, so regardless, any man who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery and forces her to do the same. When Jesus is talking about that, he is talking about that act of, again, back then they were forced to remarry, at least they weren't forced to remarry, but if a woman wanted to be supported, her choices were, is any other man going to take me? And so that would put her in a position to be committing adultery. And back in those days, it was at the hands of a husband who could just, what did it say in the Bible? Put her away. But he still said it's adultery. He could have given an exclusion. I could beat this one up, but I've done this many, many times. Guys, this isn't Christine Bacon judging you. I tried to divorce my husband. I understand the pain of wanting to get out of a marriage. I get it. I may have been the one who had the affair 30 some years ago, but there was a lot of things on my husband's side that he and I have long since healed. I wanted to get out so badly. I filed for divorce. So had that gone through, that sin would have been mine. Because Jesus doesn't say to run and put down your cross. Jesus doesn't say, and he had many chances of saying, yeah, that marriage is tough. You know what? It's okay if you leave. I said this before, but it really, really needs repeating. Is that only if you can be unbaptized can you be unmarried. Go and try and be unbaptized. Sacraments are not something we humans do. Your marriage, though you had to agree, was something God did. It's a supernatural thing. Sacraments are something that God does that we help him with. There's a little bit of differences in the Protestant understanding of sacraments, but we're not going to go there. Many Protestants believe that sacraments are something we do that God helps us with. And if it's something we do, I can understand that we could undo it. But that's not what Jesus taught. Go into your theology. Go and understand that this whole video is not to condemn you. This whole video is to say, Jesus wants you in heaven. When you stand before him, he's not going to say, well, I told you not to do it, but I understand your circumstances and you disobeyed me, but I can get it. Come on in anyway. That's not the kind of God we have. He is most merciful, but one of Satan's greatest lies is that he is not also just. We are going to be judged for every time we've wasted food, every time we've wasted times or minutes sitting around when we should have done something else. We are going to be judged for every piece of immodest clothing we wear. We are going to be judged for every moment of lust we have endured. We are going to be judged for walking into a second so-called marriage. when what we've really walked into is a legalized state of adultery. Guys, remember, he said that towards the end times, things that were good would be looked upon as evil. And we're seeing that now. People who stand against abortion or stand against the LGBTQ ideology, people who stand to protect children from having their genitalia chopped off. He said good would be seen as evil and evil would be seen as good. And just because we are in this generation and everyone has accepted divorce and remarriage, even for you good, solid Catholics and Christians, non-Catholic Christians. If you are looking upon divorce and remarriage as an acceptable thing, really go dig deep down and look at God, talk to him, and see, ask him to show you, have you accepted a cultural norm because it's easier? It's easier for you. It's easier to make excuses about how bad your ex-spouse was. I get it. And some spouses out there, though you'll call them your ex, but they're really your spouse, were wretched. But remember, God doesn't say to continue to be someone's punching bag. The church allows for getting out of a marriage, not out of the marriage, excuse me, out of a household. And sometimes because giving unto Caesar means, okay, in order to protect myself, I have to be in a civil divorce, while acknowledging that you're still married. In the eyes of God, the civil divorce in those cases, for some of the people I've seen, are a woman has 5 children and she can't feed them because her husband is taking control of the finances and trying to twist them. So she knows she's married, but she went into a civil divorce so that the court could require her husband to pay to feed his family. But she acknowledges that she's still married to him, that she cannot date, she cannot remarry, she cannot even go on a lunch date with a man if it's something she couldn't do if she was still living in the legal marriage with her husband. Don't do it. Carry your cross. I want to now sound less judgmental. I want to sound like so empathetic. You guys, just imagine if you've carried your cross up to today, that's fantastic. It's painful, but there's value in your suffering. Just tell yourself one more day, carry it for tomorrow. The harsh things your spouse says, the ugly things that he or she does. And not beating you, not abusing you. But then you carry it the next day. And you're one day closer to heaven. You have one less day to carry that cross. Because Jesus says everywhere in the Bible, pick up your cross and follow me. You will not find a single incident where he says, put it down. And a bad marriage is a heavy cross. But he still says to pick it up. It's a tough one, especially since many in our church are confused. But it's no longer at a place where we should just go to our friends, our family, and sometimes even a bad priest. We must go to God. We must go to the catechism. We must go to the Bible and say, I've just got to do your will, God. But I beg of you the grace to carry such a heavy cross. It is so hard to be married to someone who is unloving, unkind, impatient, mean. But when you get to heaven and you have been there even a minute, you will be so grateful that you carried that cross. You won't even be thinking about the past 80 years on this earth, the 30 or 40 years that you were married to that person. You will get to that finish line like I do when I run a marathon and I'm exhausted and I drop it. And they hand me a medal and put it around my neck. When God hands you the crown of the crown of glory, and he really looks at you, put to life those words that we hear way too often, but they don't have as much meaning. But hear this. Well done, young lady. You stayed with that son of mine in that painful marriage, and I knew it, but you carried the cross, and because of your suffering, you won more souls for heaven. You didn't cut and run. Well done. Welcome. Come. And I'm hoping he lets us give him a great big hug. I'll just hold on to him forever, and I'll have tears pouring down my face. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, guys, if what you're thinking is okay is accepted by the culture, you might want to rethink it. Anything the culture accepts is likely to go against what God accepts. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching another Bacon Bit. And no matter how heavy your cross gets, remember always to live your life sunny side up.